seems to all be working. Okay, chat's working. Should be good. Okay, so the past two streams I've been doing about D&D 5e, mainly because I haven't come up with a game that I particularly want to play, and this isn't going to change it because I still haven't. So today I'm going to just go through some of the subclasses. I said I was going to do it, and I kind of expected that to be later on, but seeing as I don't really have any idea what to do at the moment, I'm going to go with doing that now. So we're going to start off with Artificer, which, luckily enough, for one that we're just starting off with, it doesn't have a lot of subclasses. It actually has the least out of any of the classes, mainly because, from what I've been told, it's not technically part of the. Well, for one, it's a new class, and two, it's not allowed for you to make like subclasses for it officially and like make profit off of it, because I don't think it's in the base sort of D&D like book that's supposed to be like, free use, and still is as of the start of this video. So this one's probably the best to start with. Also happens that it's at the very top of here, so that's why I'm really doing it. um General overview of Artificer. I mean, if you've seen any other videos, you know it. A very heavily utility halfcaster. I quite like it. I've been looking at it more and more. Only big problem is the fact it doesn't fit in a lot of settings. Casual, like most stereotypical settings. Like if you look at the general D&D setting, or the average sort of fantasy setting that's been inspired by Lord of the Rings, it's the medieval sort of fantasy thing, and this really doesn't fit in. I'd say the first subclass we're going to talk about, the Alchemist, is arguably the one that fits in the most, because having people messing with potions and doing sort of biological experiments sort of fits into the aesthetic, in my opinion, of like the average sort of fantasy sort of setting. Right, Alchemist. By the way, I haven't looked at a lot of these, so I'll be looking at it at about the same time as you guys. Um, Starts off with a tool proficiency, which generally is kind of like a. I think it's a part of all of the subclasses of Artificer. The one other one I've looked at, because that's the one I'm planning on doing, is the Battlesmith, and I know that one gets forging tools as a proficiency. So this one gets alchemist supplies, makes complete sense. There's a decent amount of stuff you can actually do with this that sort of turns your heavily utility class into an even more utility subclass. There's just a long list of stuff that I think was added in. It's one of the later books, but it just gave like, this is the way you can use artisanal tools that gives you some sort of benefit. I remember I took cooking supplies, and that allowed you to get a little extra health, I think, every time you did a short or maybe long rest. So we'll start off with the spells you get. Healing Word is kind of huge, just looking at it now, because I'm pretty sure you only get Cure Wounds. And even if you don't, even if you get Healing Word naturally, having it is just one of the ones that you know is huge. Ray of Sickness, not a bad spell. Poison damage is a bit of a problem, because poison damage is the most the damage that has the most immunities out of any damage type. Flaming Sphere's okay, it's a worse spiritual weapon, really. Acid Arrow's decent. Acid damage is pretty good. Repeated acid damage isn't bad as well. Gaseous Form, I mean, that'll come up occasionally. in when you're trying to sneak into places. Mass healing word's great. Blight is a very good sort of single target move, if I remember correctly. Yep. Death Ward, I haven't seen it used, but narratively I feel like it's gonna have some big, it's gonna have big moments with it. Cloud Killer's okay. Problem is, it does do poison damage, but from what I've seen, Cloud Kill's the sort of one exception where it does a decent amount of damage to the point where it doesn't matter that it does poison damage. And Raised Dead's just interesting to have. Experimental Elixir. When you finish a long rest, you can magically produce an experimental elixir in an empty flask you touch. You roll on the table. It triggers when someone drinks it. Use an action to drink it or administer it. You need supplies, that's fine, you'll probably have them. You can make more when you hit higher levels. Okay, so this is the bigger mechanic. And you can expend spell slots to do another one. Okay. Really depends on how good they are. Let's see. The drinker regains a hit points equal to 2d4 plus intelligence. And this gives me 1d4 plus effectively intelligence modifier. I mean, that's okay. It's a better... It heals more than a healing word, but it takes an action. Whereas this takes a bonus action. But this stuff, you're gonna get a couple of these anyway, at the certain levels. I feel like these other ones... sorry. Probably take up do something a bit more useful and unique. I mean, to a certain extent, you're probably going to find spells that do it better, but I think this one's... The problem with it being an action makes this one probably pretty useless. Increasing walking speed isn't bad. I don't know how often that comes up. A little bit of AC, that again. These don't seem particularly powerful, but you are getting them effectively for free. They're kind of like half level spells, if that makes any sense. They're not cantrips because they're better than cantrips, but they're not first level spell slots because there's many first level spell slot stuff you could do that are better than them. Flying speed, I think this early level isn't bad. It'll come up occasionally. Transformation. You can cast Alter Self. That's good. That's pretty decent. That's gonna have a lot of ways you'll use it. I think that's probably my favourite, and that it makes sense that that's the 6 then, because that's the high roll in my opinion. A chemical savant. You develop a masterful command over magical chemicals, enhancing the healing and damage you create through them. Whenever you cast a spell using your alchemist supplies as a spellcasting focus, which I feel like if you're going alchemy, most of the time you will, you gain a bonus to one roll of the spell. The roll must restore hit points or be a damage roll that deals acid, fire, necrotic, or poison. Okay. Bit of a weird restriction, but I'm guessing the logic is it's like what you'd see in an alchemical flask. Like, it's implying that you are pouring chemicals into a flask and throwing it at the enemy, and that's what's coming out. You add equal to your intelligence modifier. So you gain a bonus to one roll of the spell. Does that include... I'm assuming it includes your attack roll. If so, that's pretty decent. And I like that. Like a little general buff. Isn't it huge, but it will help you. That will come up a decent amount of times. Restorative Regents. Starting at 9th level, you can incorporate restorative regents into some of your works. Whenever a creature drinks an experimental elixir you created, the creature gains 10 hit points equal to 2d6 plus your intelligence modifier. That's pretty decent. You've turned your action to do 1d4 healing to an action that gives you 1d4 healing plus 2d6 plus intelligence modifier temp health. That will come up. This is pretty decent. Having lesser restoration. I know it's late level, but having it where it's like somebody, bosses and stuff will start having like these sorts of conditions being sort of part of their moveset. Admittedly, probably part of their like attack that they can only do, like the recharging attack, like a breath weapon on a dragon or something. But it'll come up more than often. I mean, knowing my luck, it'll come up like every turn if they only have to roll a 6 on a d6, because it's just I have bad luck. I think everyone says that though. So having it where it's like, not only are you potentially adding an extra AC to them because maybe you roll that one, or giving them a fly speed or something, you're also giving them temp health, which it may come up. It may be the difference maker. It could mean that like one of his minions doesn't kill him in one shot. And also getting rid of maybe like paralyzed, which could be huge, or blinded, which is huge. You know, blinded, deafened, paralyzed, and poisoned are all things that are really like a proper debuff. Like they can really like mess up your ability to actually fight. And so having this action you can do twice, I think, at this point, because I think it upgrades at level 6, is kind of huge. What's the sort of capstone of the subclass? 15th level, you're exposed to so many chemicals that pose little risk to you, and you can use them quickly to quickly end certain ailments. Resistance to acid and poison, you're immune to the poisoned condition. You can cast greater restoration and heal without expending a spell slot, without preparing the spell, and without material components, provided you use alchemist supplies as your spellcasting focus. Once you cast this, you can't cast it until a long rest. You get this 5th level spell and a 6th level spell that this one will come up. Greater Restoration has a lot of uses, especially, honestly, Charmed probably comes up a lot. Curse will come up occasionally, although it might be a situation where the curse is too powerful, but having that is pretty good. Heal, like that's a lot of points. Like heal's getting to the point where if you're healing them for 70, that might be significant enough that they can survive another attack, which is huge. If you can get that off your healing, or multiple attacks, if you can get off your healing, then you've done incredible healing. All kinds of healing, in my opinion, are just to get them so that they get their round. And if your healing also means that they get another round, it's incredible. Overall, the more I've read Alchemist, because I hadn't read it before, I quite like it. I think it's quite interesting. What's quite interesting about it is they seem very supporting. Like this to me seems backline sort of magic caster way of going about it, where based on the other one I've looked at, that one has an entirely different play style. I was under the assumption you got like a familiar, like a homunculus, but maybe I'm thinking of the other one, a different one. But this one's pretty decent. I like this, and I do think this one is the one you choose if you fit. If you're like, I want to sort of fit into. I want to play Artificer, but I want to fit it into the world. This is what I would choose. just looking at this experimental elixir again, this actually is decent. It's effectively a bless for the next minute, which a minute is like 10 turns. That's probably actually the best one. Having bless on you never is bad. But overall, the alchemist seems really good, and the more I've read it, the more I like it. The fact that you're just going around curing effects on your, using spells to like put effects on the enemy, or to heal your friends, and going around just getting rid of their the little additional effects that enemies have put on them, keeping them in top condition. I think that's pretty decent. Armorer. Armorer, if I remember correctly, is the Iron Man one. So with this one, you get Smith's tools. Makes sense. You get heavy armor, which is kind of huge. Being able to take heavy armor means that you not only do you get more AC, but it's easier to dump decks, which I don't recommend, but you can. And this way you take like, or you can take a buff from this, because if you're in the minuses in decks, if you're wearing medium or light armor, you'd be taking minuses to it, whereas this you would take no minuses because it's a flat AC. Smith's tools makes complete sense with what you're doing here. Yeah, Smith's tools are great for the situation. The spells you get access to seem very heavily to be... They seem to be interesting. I thought they were going very heavy damage, but the later it goes on, the more they seem to be going like crowd control. You got Magic Missile Thunderwave, which immediately made me think, oh, they want you to have access to spells that don't care. You know what, that's probably what it is actually. I think I've just figured it out. They're trying to give you spells to a certain extent that don't matter that you've cast them in combat, in melee combat. Magic Missile just hits, you don't need to roll. Thunderwave, it's a saving throw on the enemy's sake. Mirror Image, you just cast that. Shatter, again, a saving throw ability. Hypnotic Patterns is sort of where it disappears a bit, because Hypnotic Patterns is a concentration spell. But I guess if you succeed, you can keep it because they'll charm them and won't attack you. Lightning Bolt doesn't care, it's just a one-time thing. It's a saving throw. Fire Shield. Fire Shield is so weird to me. It's decent for being in melee, though. That's what I'll say. Greater Invisibility. Decent for getting you out of melee, or to get you into combat with the thing you want to kill. Pass Wall. I guess it allows you to move around. I've never seen this spell used. It seems decent. Wall of Force blocks off a load of people, so that you could fight the thing you want. Arcane Armor. This is the Iron Man ability. As an action, you can turn a suit of armor you're wearing into arcane armor, which I feel like narratively people are just going to have it where you always wear it and it's always powered, but I guess you technically have to do this, which I guess in combat makes it a bit of an annoyance because you have to choose to do this. Interesting enough, when you do that, you get rid of the strength restriction, which, if this doesn't have a time limit on it, then I feel like you're just always going to have it as the arcane armor. I think maybe it's saying it takes an action is effectively the same as like with like your weapon, if you go back to the blade and it's like you attune to it. But this one they've just gone, we're just going to say it's an action, so you can do it quickly. Strength requirement doesn't matter. You can use your arcane armor as a spellcasting focus. That's a big thing that makes it the Iron Man one. It attaches to you and it can't be removed against your will. Again, it's another one of those. It's just an Iron Man one. Interestingly enough, they've specified that the helmet function is a bonus action, and the fact that they have that it replaces any missing limbs is actually kind of a really cool sort of little narrative thing there. To be honest with you, and then an action to don and doff it, which is decent because it means that you're wearing heavy armor, like potentially if you're wearing plate armor. If you're wearing plate armor, normally don and doffing it is like, to take it off will normally be like, I swear it's like an hour or something, and then to put it on is like longer. It's a long time. It's like not more, normally all of the medium and light armor stuff you can kind of just wave away as when you say you put on the armor, you just do, and that's it. With heavier armor, it becomes a bit different. I think realistically a lot of people just still go with that whole idea of it, you just put it on, but in the rules there's something there you can use. Armor model. You can customize your arcane armor. When you use so, choose one of the following armor models: Guardian or Infiltrator. The model you choose gains you special benefits while you wear it. Each model includes a special weapon. When you attack with that weapon, you can add your intelligence modifier instead of strength or dex to the attack and damage rolls. You can change the armor's model whenever you finish a long or short rest, provided you have Smith's tools. Guardian. You designed one for frontline. Sorry about that. You get like, what are these, like thunder gauntlets? They're simple weapons. They deal 1d8 thunder damage on hit. Creature hit by the gauntlets has disadvantage on attack rolls against targets other than you until the start of your next turn. Okay, that's pretty handy. That makes you a decently good front line, honestly. A D8 weapon's not too weird. It's the only people better than you are the people who have access to martial weapons, but you're not taking that much of a debuff. But you're getting that extra effect, which is, I think, they've tried to give that to a couple things they've tried to make into tanky classes before. And I think this is the best version of it because it's just a sort of passive, really, if you hit, which is what you're planning on doing anyway. And then as a bonus action, you gain 10 hit points equal to your level in this class. Not great. You can use this a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. I guess it's decent in a long-term fight where putting on this sort of defensive field means that you just, like, say you're using this 2 times in a fight. That's 2 times where you save yourself like 3 damage. So you save yourself 6 damage, which is at level 3 is not insignificant. That could be like the equivalent of 1 extra attack that you get in. Then there's the Infiltrator one, which I think the only people I've seen use this have used the Guardian. But this one looks interesting as well. You effectively... okay. This is the actual I've just become Iron Man. You got gem-like nodes on your like fist and chest. Shoot them out. They literally are like lasers because they're lightning damage. Once on each of your turns, when you hit a creature with it, you can deal an extra d6. Oh, okay. That's actually pretty decent. So you got 2d6 effectively damage if you hit. You get extra walking speed. Your advantage on stealth checks. If the armor normally would impose disadvantage, the advantage and disadvantage cancel each other out as normal. Okay. So you can actually do stealth checks in plate armor. It'll be a normal roll, but you can do it, which is it's kind of insane. I like both of them, honestly. I think both of the modifications have their own unique stuff to them. I think it really comes across as being really good. Yeah, I mean, I haven't read it all the way through. I kind of just not dismissed it, but put it sort of like under, okay, it's just Iron Man 1. But I mean, there's some stuff there that's quite interesting. You can be a properly good like melee fighter with the armor model Guardian, and like you'll also have access to a lot of spells. It reminds me a lot of whenever you take like War or Life, the ones that are like give you heavy armor, and with War's case, and I guess Forge as well, martial weaponry, where you effectively become a frontline fighter, but you have all access to all of these spells. This one's slightly different because you you don't get access to as many spells, but you do get access to magical items, which I'm not sure how it works with whether you can put them on your armor that you make arcane. I think they do. I think you could. There's no reason why you couldn't. You could have infusions on it, and you can run properly tanky. And I like the fact that Guardian actually turns you into a tank, because I know to a certain extent people don't want there to be these defined roles of like you're the tank, you're the healer, you're the DPS. But I hate the fact that as a frontline fighter, there's no way of keeping them, except for attacks of opportunity. There's no way of incentivizing the enemy staying in battle with me instead of just going after my backline. Because a lot of enemies, because of how they are and how they always have the number advantage on you most of the time, will go for the run past you to get hits on the backline strategy a decent amount of the time. And when that happens, you're just sort of stuck in a situation where it's like, well, then what's the point of me being here and having all these tanky abilities? I can do decent damage, but I kind of was made to block the enemy for these more damaging people. And I think if there's more stuff like this, where it's not necessarily you have to attack me, but it's more like I make it so that you will have a disadvantage to not I'm using disadvantage here not as in the mechanical disadvantage, but in general disadvantage. Have a disadvantage to not attacking me. And I quite like that ability. Extra attack, it's just extra attack, but the fact that you get it on this one is quite interesting. It goes back to the infiltration model, where that one specifically states that only once per turn, once per round, you can add the extra d6. So actually, that doesn't scale great later on, whereas the gauntlets actually do. So the infiltrator model goes from 2d6 to 3d6, whereas the melee person, the guardian, goes from 1d8 to 2d8. So it's not the guardian one starts to catch up. I think 3d6 is still better than 2d8 on average, because you average a 4 on a d6, so you get a total of 12, whereas you also average what is it, like a 5 on a d8, so you'd average 10. But it's getting closer, and I mean you're adding this additional effect as well. You learn to use your infusions to specifically modify your arcane armor. The armor now counts as a separate item for that armor now counts as separate items for the purposes of your infused item feature. Oh, that's really cool. So I'm guessing, based on how it's saying here, you could only put one infusion on your armor, and this is going, actually you can put an infusion on 3 different parts of your armor. if you change the model, each of these items can bear one of your infusions and the infusion transfers over. In addition, a maximum number of items you can infuse at once increases by 2, but those items must be okay. Okay, so it's quite interesting actually, this one. So you do get to customize your armor even more by adding in all these infusions, and it just gives you more so that you don't feel like you're left out. That's a really good thing as well. Perfected armor. Seemingly you get an extra ability on Guardian and Infiltrator. Let's have a look at this. When a huge or smaller creature you can see ends its turn within 30 feet of you, you can use your reaction to magically force it to make a strength save against your spell save DC, which will be pretty high at this point. On a failed save, you can pull the creature up to 25 feet directly to an unoccupied space. If you pull the target to a space within 5 feet of you, you can make a melee attack. That's cool. I quite like that. It's a get over here. You know, like a scorpion sort of get over here. Which means, again, it really feels like, and I haven't looked at all the subclasses as I said at the beginning, but this to me feels like the closest they've gotten to making a tank class. But making it so that a lot of their features either can be done a lot, or are in fact passive, so you don't need to really worry about it as much. Like, you can effectively do it infinitely, which I very much like. I just feel like it's weird for the best version of a tank to be the artificer, and I think that's just a product of it being made much later, and so they've sort of realized stuff that's needed with the power creep at this moment and how you actually make it a thing. Infiltrator. Any creature that takes lightning damage from your lightning launchers glimmers with magical light until the start of your next turn. The glimmering creature sheds dim light 5 foot and has disadvantage on attack rolls against you. So it's kind of reverse of the lightning gauntlets. In addition, the next attack roll against it has advantage, and if the attack hits, they take more. Okay, I like it. You're sort of marking them very temporarily. Overall, Armorer again. I'm delightfully surprised. I haven't read any of these but Battlesmith, and this one, like The Alchemist, has kind of opened my eyes to how different these subclasses make the class. Whereas The Alchemist is going around throwing potions and like curing little debuffs and healing. Armor is like either getting into the fight in heavy armor, hitting people with gauntlets, shocking them and like making it so you have to attack them, and whenever you leave they can just bring you back. Or they're just sitting behind the line, zooming around with their extra movement speed, shooting them with lasers, and eventually getting to the point where they shoot you with a laser and it marks them so the other friend can go in and do the big damage. In addition, you're still getting access to all of these spells. And the cool thing you can do with these spells, and I would strongly recommend it if you are playing an artificer, is you can flavor them. So if I'm casting Burning Hands, which I don't even know if the artificer can get, but say it could. If I'm casting Burning Hands, I'm not conjuring the spell in my hand and producing fire. I feel like I'm opening a nozzle in the hand and I'm doing a flamethrower. So having that sort of little bits of like little flavor is huge. I quite like both of those, honestly. If I hadn't already settled on Battlesmith, I'd consider those ones, honestly. Artillerist. Now I've heard bits about what this is. You get wood carving. Interesting. I guess it's implied, and maybe they're trying to get it through that the stuff you make, it can be wooden. It can be just like magical wooden cannons. And that's sort of what they're trying to get into people's head, because they don't want people to associate with what I said about the whole it being a bit sci-fi for and a bit high fantasy for the regular medieval D&D, and this is sort of what they're saying, which I'm glad that they're narratively putting in there to help people, but I don't feel like it works in that way. Spells are generally AoE damage spells with occasional support. I think this one very much inhabits the backline sort of DPS. Whereas I feel like Alchemist was utility and healing, like buff, debuff, crowd control, healing. This one specifically the crowd control and healing bits, with a side of like getting rid of debuffs and buffs. This one is very much the ranged sort of damage dealer, similar to the infiltrator armorer as well. First ability, let's have a look. Eldritch Cannon. At third level, you learn how to create a magical cannon. You can take your action to magically conjure a small or tiny eldritch cannon in an unoccupied space. Or on a oh, I thought it said or on like a vertical surface, but it said the exact opposite. Can occupy its space, and a small, tiny one could be held in one hand. I like the idea that you could keep it on yourself. Like, I know it says unoccupied space, but you could pick it up and move it around like that. I don't know if that sort of goes against the rules. Can't do it until the end of a long rest or expending a first level. Okay. Can't have more than one. It's a magical artifact, regardless of its size. The cannon has an AC of 18, which is pretty decent, honestly. That's like heavy armor without a shield. And a number of hit points equal to 5 times your artificer level. So it's gonna have 100 at 20, level 20, which isn't bad, honestly. I think that scales decently well. It is immune to poison damage and psychic damage. That makes sense. And all conditions, that makes sense. It is forced if it's forced to make ability check or saving throw. It treats it as having a score of 10. If mending's cast on it, it regains 2d6 HP. That's pretty decent. 0 disappears. Dismiss it early as an action. When you create the cannon, you determine its appearance and whether it has legs. You can decide which type it has, choosing from the options. I'm assuming even if you choose it not to have legs, you probably come up with a different reason where it can move around, because you're debuffing your character. Although I have debuffed my character before for flavor, so you can. I guess you could do whatever you want. It can move 15 feet, but it can climb. It's effectively got a climb speed of 15 feet. Interesting. I like that. I like the idea of it being on the side of a wall shooting. Okay, when you create it, you can choose what kind of wall. Let's have a look at what you get. You get a flamethrower, which is effectively burning hands every turn. Yeah, that's burning hands. 2d8 fire damage, failed save, half damage on a success. I think that's just burning hands. Force ballista. You shoot something with force damage. That feels like it's Eldritch Blast without the charisma modifier bonus, but with the invocation that pushes them back, which is interesting. The Protector emits a burst of positive energy, granting itself and each creature of your choice within 10 feet of it a number of temp hit points equal to 1d8 plus intelligence. I think that's going to come up a decent amount. That could make if you put that near 2 of your front lines, and just every turn when they're getting attacked, it's like, we'll take a d8 off of that damage. Like, there's abilities that do that, and it's a reaction, so you're giving up something. Whereas this is just I guess you're just giving up potential damage and they're choosing a different thing. But having effectively a D8 extra health every turn is decent. And it's a D8 plus your intelligence modifier as well. So realistically, if you're doing like point buyer stuff, it'll be a D8 plus 2. A D8 plus 2 is decent. Like, that's better. Like, some potions are 2d4 plus 2, which isn't much better. Like, statistically, it's like 2 better, I think. So yeah, I think the Protector's really, really good. And I think these are decent as well. I mean, I'm not gonna like be against a first level spell every turn at 3rd level. And honestly, a first level spell every turn, that stays for a while being decent. And choosing one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful cantrip, weakening it slightly but giving it still its push, is huge. Although the push actually might work in their favour, because they could get hit by it, pushed back out of the sort of combat range of your ally, and then they could get their turn and just leave without having to disengage. Arcane Firearm. You've learned how to turn your wand, staff, or rod into an arcane firearm. When you finish a long rest, you can use your wood carver's tools to carve a special sigil. I always have a problem with that word. Into your equipment to make it into a arcane firearm. You can use your arcane firearm as a spellcasting focus. Okay. When you cast it through it, roll a d8, and you gain a bonus to one of the spell's damage equal to the number you roll. So it's just like a little bit of extra damage on all your damaging spells. That's okay. It's not incredible. It's not like really eye-catching. I think I preferred the armor as this level ability that felt like it gave you more options. This is just a little extra damage, which admittedly this sort of level, like the second ability you get in like a subclass, normally if your first one wasn't a damage one, this one would be a damage one. Nice level ability, Explosive Cannon. I do like cannons. Starting at 9th level, every Eldritch Cannon you create is more destructive. Okay, general buff to all of them. The cannon's damage rolls all increase by 1d8. So is the logic there that the flamethrower's damage is now 3d8, which would be an upcasted Burning Hands, and your like, what was it, Force Cannon does 2d8, which is the equivalent of, I guess, a higher level Eldritch Blast without the Charisma modifier bonus. As an action, you can... Oh! But it doesn't increase the Protector? Unless... I don't think that counts as a damage roll. As an action, you can command your cannon to detonate if you're within 60 feet of it. Doing so destroys the cannon and forces each creature within 20 feet of it to make a dex save or take 3d8. That's not great. That's an AoE that does 3d8 force damage. Bearing in mind, if I've read that right, you already get a 15-foot cone every turn of fire damage that's 3d8. I'll just double check to see if it is d8. Yeah. So, assuming this is correct, then this ability here doesn't seem good. It actually... I guess the only situation it just seems good is if you're surrounded by stuff and you're on low health, you know that statistically you won't survive, and you can get more people in AoE than you can a cone. And that feels like the only situation I use this. It's cool, like, as a big, like, moment, but it isn't particularly impressive to me. I think this one actually is the one that I'm the least impressed with at the moment. Fortified position. Starting at 15th level, you're a master at forming well-defended emplacements using Eldritch Cannon. You and your allies have half cover within 10 feet of the cannon. That's pretty good. Half covers, what, like 2 extra AC? Maybe more? Either way, it's just a little bit of bonus, and it makes sense. You can have 2 cannons. You can create 2 with the same action, and you can activate both of them with the same bonus action. You can determine whether the cannons are identical to each other or different. So that's pretty decent. I mean, the problem is at this point, I don't know how good the Protector is. Because unless the Protector also gets that extra D8, so it's 2d8 temp hit points. Even then, like the stuff you're fighting, I don't know how much this helps. It might help. I could be wrong, but you don't want 2 of them. So you definitely only ever take 1 of them, unless you're in a situation, I guess, where you've got 2 fronts and you both want them to have this little extra damage. But yeah, I'll be honest, I'm a bit disappointed in this one compared to the others. I know what it's going for, and I appreciate the customization of having 3 different things you can summon. But when I looked at the Alchemist, I thought it had really little cool abilities and loads of stuff you could do with it. And with the Armorer, I thought there was again a decent amount of customization there. With this one, there's a part of me that wishes that either you could make later on you could make more of them. Like it became you could actually have more than them than they previously said, or they need to have something that allows you to maybe put your infusions onto the cannons. And so you could have like it's like a little thing, but having it where it's like, oh, I put this infusion on my protector that gives it a little bit extra AC, or it's like a bonus action. I can do something to give it a bit more AC. I think this is the most disappointing of it of the subclasses. It's still fine, like it's not bad, but that's just my opinion on it. This one, this is the one I've looked at before because this is the one I'm planning on playing. I think I've looked up all the way to the second to last ability. I haven't looked at the last ability. You also get Smith's Sword. It makes complete sense. You're making a robot buddy for yourself. And you're going to be more proficient in using weaponry. The spells, I quite like them. They remind me of getting access to a load of paladin spells. In fact, other than maybe Flame Shield, I think all of these are like things that you can get with paladin. Oh, I guess this one. Never mind, you can't get shields and stuff. I would have thought you could get shield. Anyway, I guess they get divine shield. They're very paladin-like, except for some notable exceptions. I think Conjure Barrage and Fire Shield seem a bit out of place when if you looked at it from a paladin's perspective, but I quite like Conjure Barrage because you don't have to just throw an arrow or like a dart. You could throw something else and it just get multiplied. So I quite like that. Flame Shield's okay. I've never really looked into it. Battle Ready. This is pretty cool. This fundamentally changes you again, because before we've had utility slash healer slash crowd control. You've had a heavy sort of tank slash damage dealer. We've had a ranged damage dealer, and that's just been range damage dealing and with a tiny bit of utility. And then this one is the melee damage dealer, which sort of comes with its own version of a tank. Whereas the armorer is first a tank, second a damage dealer. This is first a damage dealer, second a tank. You get the steel defender, Oh, sorry. I should probably say what battle ready gives you. It gives you a proficiency with martial weapons. Martial weapons are like a significant improvement and makes you a lot more damaging. Also, when you attack with a magical weapon, um, which you can easily make your weapon because you can infuse it, you use intelligence instead of strength or dex. Huge. Effectively just gets rid of any problems you'd have. And it means you don't have to do the, like, what I like to call the barbarian problem, which is that you need to put stuff in strength, you need to put stuff in con, you need to put stuff in dex. You're spread very thin. This one you don't need to. Steel Defender, kind of the main mechanic of this subclass. It effectively makes this cute little. Oh, they don't have the picture there, but there's a picture of like a dog version of it, like a little dog robot. It can be anything really, but I mean, the general depiction is of a dog. It goes in there in combat, shares your initiative, takes a turn after you, can move and use its reaction on its own. But if you don't command it, it can only dodge. You can use your bonus action to make it take another action, like a different action. It's not you don't get an extra action. Interesting is that when you are down, it can do whatever action it wants, which is quite interesting because it means it could heal you up. I quite like that. So it's unlike summons where they would just disappear. Got the mending thing that you saw on some other subclasses, and you can revive it, which is decent. Um, yeah, it's just a great dude. I mean, the major parts of it are in the actual Steel Defender sort of character sheet. If it can load up, I'll show you. Right here. Can I make this full screen? That's not what I wanted. Look at this dog. How do I get rid of this? Fuck if I know. That's useless. Very much like this gone. None of these seem to say delete. I'm used to there being a little trash. Okay, this is better. It's not great. Actually, you can barely see that. What am I saying? Um, Effectively, what it allows you to do is, why is that going rid of my outsmith thing? What it allows you to do, the Steel Defender, is it can sort of jump in the way of if you look here, you can jump in the way of, like, for one, it can't be surprised. Got all of these decent things. It's not that bad. Like, hit points equal to your intelligence modifier plus 5 times your artificer level. It's pretty decent. Like, it's not bad. Like, this thing's gonna get to. This is gonna get to the same level as the other thing. Like, at 20th level, it'll be 100 plus 2 plus your intelligence modifier. So it'll be like 107. I swear I saw something that allowed me to look at it in a different way. I don't I don't know why it's so hard to get rid of that on my list. I wish there was an easier way. Oh, there. Is the printer view better? Not really. Table view better? Doesn't even help. Anyway, it allows you to sort of jump in the way as a reaction. And also, it's like, it's not that bad. It's got a force strike, which is pretty decent. Force empowered strike. Force is very good ability, as I said before. It's quite nice. It's kind of like a pseudo tank, as I mentioned before. But it's not very good at defending itself. You get extra attack because, as with the other subclass, you go in it. You're melee. You're going in for damage. I guess extra attack doesn't necessarily mean melee, but you're going in there for the damage. Arcane Jolt. I like this ability a lot. Whenever you hit a target with a magical attack, or your defender does it, you can have one of these following effects, where either you just deal a little bit of extra damage, or you heal somebody a little bit. What's interesting about this is it means that you can sort of do a kind of effect of like having, you can heal multiple people on your turn, and you can also have situations where you're like, I can heal this person and not sacrifice my turn. You only get it equal to your intelligence modifier, but this can be huge. I mean, I can envision a situation where your group is doing badly. Like you're down, you're close to dying. Several of your people are knocked out, or not knocked out, but they're taking death saves. And then you hit this person with an attack with your steel defender. I tell you what, not your steel defender. You hit it with you, and then you go, I'm going to transfer these arcane energies to heal this backline person that still had a decent amount of spells left. And then they get up with 2d6 health, and then you go, bonus action, healing word. I healing word this person. Now bear in mind, you might not have healing word. I don't know. I'd have to recheck the Artificer spell list. Tell you what, it's literally right there. But if you don't, you can still use that bonus action to do the Steel Defender attack if need be. So it's not too bad. They don't seem to have healing word, which is a shame. But that actually makes that other class, the Alchemist, that does get it, actually a lot better. I really like this ability. I think it gives a lot of stuff you can do. Improved Defender. Improved Defender just seems to be just a general upgrade. It buffs your 2d6 to 4d6, which is kind of a big jump. Having your Steel Defender have a little bit more AC isn't bad. And this Deflect attack, this is the thing I was talking about before, which is reaction. I think it's reaction to Enforced Disadvantage. But this time it's like Enforced Disadvantage plus you take some damage, which isn't bad. Especially if they're concentrating on a spell. It's like another situation where you can stop them from concentrating, like another concentration check. Let me double check, but yeah, you can repair them. It can repair itself, which is kind of huge. Sorry. And its AC on its own, like, it's not bad. 15 is not bad. I mean, later on it's going to be pretty bad, even with the extra +2. But I mean, every hit, you got to think of it like every hit that's hitting the Steel Defender isn't hitting you. Overall, I really like it. I don't know if I'm being honest, it's my favorite, because the Alchemist and the Armorer actually seems quite fun mechanically. But I do quite like it, and it really fits the character I was gonna make. Overall, I think honestly the Artificer has a lot. Although there isn't a lot, the ones here, 3 out of 4 is pretty good for like subclasses that I like. Right, next is Barbarian, and based on how long it took me to do Artificer, I'm gonna guess this is gonna be the second one I do this stream, because there's a lot more, as you can see. The problem I brought up in the previous video is kind of going to come up in this, where this is perfect. Why didn't I do this at the start? How do I move the thing like this? Okay. And then scrolling. Right, this is perfect. Okay, I'm going to continue this. Sorry, I just found this out. Problem with Barbarian is, as I said before, everything encompasses rage. And you'll see that a lot with this. All of them are about rage. And I personally don't feel like it changes the rage enough to make the character feel different. Like, as you saw before with the Artificer, each one of those was unique in its own way. It took up a different role that than the other one. Like one was they almost did actually do the four like MMO roles of range DPS, melee DPS, tank, and healer. They kind of did that to a certain extent. The only difference would be the DPSs were arguably could do either. They could also be a tank, also they could be a range DPS, also they could be a melee DPS. This one I don't believe that as much. Let's start off with Path of Ancestral Guardian, which is going to, I feel like, be maybe the only exception to this rule. Because from what I've seen of Ancestral Guardian, it does a decent amount. The first ability is starting when you choose this path at 3rd level. Spectral warriors appear when you enter your rage. While you're raging, the first creature you hit with an attack on your turn becomes the target of the warriors, which hinder its attacks. Until the start of your next turn, the target has disadvantage on any attack rolls that isn't against you, and when the target hits a creature other than you with an attack, that creature has resistance to the damage dealt by the attack. See, this is an ability like the Guardian Form Armorer that is like a nice passive one. This is a decent tanking ability. This is why I said that this one might be an exception, is because of rules like this. I very much like this rule. In fact, I very much like the idea of this subclass as well. It goes very much into the sort of shamanistic stuff that you can technically do with flavor, as like a wizard or a sorcerer or a cleric or a druid. You can effectively do it as a magic class, is what I'm saying, but there isn't a shaman class. And this one goes very much into like the ancestral spirit sort of thing that you would get from a shaman. Its next ability, Spirit Shield, is 6th level. The guardian spirits that aid you can provide supernatural protection to those you defend. If you're raging and another creature you see within 30 feet of you takes damage, you can use your reaction to reduce that damage by 2d6. When you reach certain levels, it increases. So again, this is another passive ability to tanking. I think, whereas before I said that the Armorer was probably the best example of it, I think I hadn't really read this one yet. Again, as I think it says in the title, it's just my opinion on these stuff, and although I don't think I put this in the title, at the end of the day, it's just my first time for looking at a lot of this stuff. Consult the spirits. You get the ability to consult with ancient spirits. When you do so, you cast the Augur or Clairvoyance spell. Rather than creating a spherical sensor using the use of Clairvoyance, instead you summon one of your ancestral spirits. Okay, that's cool. A nice little out-of-game ability. I think Barbarian needs a lot more of these, just because in Heavenly it doesn't have access to them outside of its subclass. Having this is good, it's not enough though, in my opinion. 14th level, your ancestral spirits grow powerful enough to retaliate. When you use your spirit shield to reduce the damage, the attacker takes that amount of damage. I like it. It's very heavily into keeping them attacking you. Very similar, in fact, to the Artificer subclass we looked at. Except this one doesn't have any ways of getting you away from the backline. It just can defend against what you do against the backline. Problem is, I mean, they rectify this a bit with it upgrading at later levels, but if they want to focus the backline, they're going to beat the backline. And to a certain extent, that's true for the Guardian one as well. But I feel like disadvantage is huge, and for like early to mid level, it's going to be better, and then this one will be better because in the later levels, because of it'll be reducing some damage. Like, it might not be a ton. Also, problem with this ability that I've just sort of thought of, if it's a reaction, it means that if there's more than one enemy, it doesn't really work, and it makes it so you don't even have that attack of opportunity thing. Now, bear in mind that's just a general problem in general. If you have multiple enemies, that's true for the Armorer one as well. Overall, Ancestral Spirits, I kind of love it. It's kind of my exception to the rule. As I said before, I think it's decent in making it so that it ticks one of my boxes. It ticks the general box I have for all subclasses, which is it makes the subclass different. The only box it doesn't tick is the Barbarian specific box I have, which is it needs to have a lot more utility in it, because utility does not come from the main class. This ability existed, but the Barbarian had a load of utility inherently from its class. Then I think it would be like 10 out of 10. It's just a victim of like what it's the subclass of. Path of the Battle Rager. Now this is one I've never looked at because of that first line of text where it says restriction dwarfs only. But I mean, I guess that doesn't matter. But the thing is, I've only sort of realised that like recently in my experience of D&D, is that like it sounds stupid to the average person, but the idea that I don't need to take these rules as absolutely as written. I can flavor stuff. I can, when something says, oh, this does ice damage, if I talk with a DM and go, hey, can I have it as fire damage? Which is kind of a debuff because there's more things resistant to fire than there are ice or cold. And they'll probably say yes, and it like that'll be fine, and it'll make me feel more like I'm in the character. So I might have a look at this one later on. Well, I'm gonna have a look at it now, but like I might consider it for a backup character or a character at some point. When you choose this path at 3rd level, you gain the ability to use spiked armor, something I've never used before. When you're wearing spiked armor and are raging, you can use your bonus action. Oh, sorry. Ability to use spiked armor as a weapon, which is interesting because I don't know narratively what damage it would do. I don't know. Maybe it would be considered a improvised weapon. I guess it. Yeah, but you have proficiency in it. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not really gonna look into it, but I'd be interested to see what that does. While you're wearing it and you're raging, you can use your bonus action to make one melee weapon attack with your armor's spikes at the target within 5 feet of you. Oh, if I had read more, I would literally have seen it. Look, that's going to come up a lot, if I'm being honest. So, bonus action, you get a d4 like an attack that can do d4 plus your strength. Additionally, when you make that attack action, when you use the attack action to grapple a creature, they take piercing damage. Okay, that's kind of cool. I've got somebody who loves grappling rules, and so they might like this. That's a decent ability. I have no complaints. It is as it's going to be for all of them, it is a rage-specific ability, but you kind of just have to assume that. You just got to hope that the other abilities give you more stuff you can do. Reckless Abandon. When you use Reckless Attack while raging, you also gain 10 hit points equal to your Constitution modifier. I mean, I'll give it credit. It's using a different ability other than Rage. I just feel like there's not much you can do with that. Maybe I've gotten a bit spoiled by having the Artificer having all of these different things you can do with your infusion, but this one isn't particularly interesting, but it's not bad in any way. Battle Rager Charge. Beginning at 10th level, you can use the dash action as a bonus action while you're raging. That's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool ability because it means you're a speedy Barbarian. It's a bit of a late ability. I feel like you could easily have had this earlier because of the fact that I know you're wearing heavy. You're not wearing heavy armor, but you're wearing medium armor. But I mean, you could have had it third level because I mean, it's cunning action's a thing for rogue. Step of the wind is a thing for monk. Like there's people who get your ability but better at that level. I don't think it would have been too powerful. Starting at 14th level, when a creature within 5 feet of you hits you with a melee attack, they take 3 piercing damage if you are raging and aren't incapacitated and are wearing spiked armor. You see, this is what I was talking about. This has no utility abilities on it. The last one had a utility ability, but this one is just all about raging, with a tiny one about reckless attack. And because of that, I look at this and I go, well, this is kind of boring, because inherently the barbarian, in my opinion, is boring. And if everything's related to rage, I only have one thing I do. So, I don't rate this one particularly high. It's cool narratively, that's about it. Path of the Beast. Just move it across, so it's front and centre. Path of the Beast. I was really hyped for this thing to exist when I first saw it. I'm a bit annoyed at how it came across. It's still okay, but I'm still a bit annoyed with it. You probably you get it from either inhibiting by a primal spirit or descendant from shapeshifters. I quite like the idea of your father or your mother being a shapeshifter and never mentioning it, and because of that you've inherited some of it. When you enter your rage, you can transform, revealing the bestial power within you. Till it ends, you manifest natural weapons. They count as simple weapons. Yep. You add your strength. You got the bite, which deals 1d8 piercing. Isn't bad. Once on each of your turns, when you damage a creature with the bite, you regain number of hit points equal to your proficiency bonus, provided you have less than half your health points when you hit. Pretty decent. Maybe can come up earlier levels. I mean, it isn't bad. It isn't good. It's what you're going to see a lot, which is slightly worse damage than you would get because you can use martial weapons as a barbarian, so you could get a D10, but additional effect on there. Like this claw one is you get D6 slashing damage, but when you do an attack action, you can make an additional one as part of the same action. You effectively get extra attack, but just for claws. So you get 2d6 damage if both of them hit. So it's okay. It's I think technically better than it's definitely better than 1d10. But I mean, you have to hit twice. Tail. You grow a big tail, spiky tail, does a d8 damage and has the reach property, means you can hit from further away. If a creature you can see within 10 feet of you makes an attack roll, you can reaction roll a d8 and apply that AC to the number, making it miss you. That's pretty cool. I think the tail's probably the best one, in my opinion. Overall, it's not bad. Gives you a load of cool options to narratively do. I may be coming across as really negative about barbarian subclasses. It's just because I'm pretty negative about barbarian. I think these are cool abilities just inherently. 6th level, Bestial Soul. The feral power within you increases, causing your natural weapons to count as magical. It was needed if you're doing this kind of stuff. The Circle of the Moon gets this as well. You can also alter your form to help you adapt to environments. You can, when you finish a short and long rest, choose one of the following features. You get a swimming speed equal to your walking speed, and you can breathe underwater. You gain climbing speed equal to your walking speed, and you can climb on difficult terrain, including upside down. You effectively get spider climb, except for, I guess, webs. When you jump, you can make make a strength athletics check and extend your jump by a number equal to that once per turn. These are cool utility abilities. I mean, they have a lot more that you can do with them because there's so many options. You can sort of specialize yourself to the area you're going to. I don't think this is bad. It's just I don't want to repeat myself. It's just that the class it's attached to has that problem. Infectious Fury. When you hit a creature with your natural weapons while you're raging, the beast within you can curse your target with rabid fury. The target must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or suffer the following effects. They must use its reaction to make a melee attack against another creature of your choice that you can see. They take 2d12 psychic damage. You use it equal to your proficiency bonus. This isn't bad as like a little recharge ability you can do. And it wouldn't seem that bad if it wasn't for the fact, and I keep bringing this up, the only thing you can do as a barbarian is basic attack. More so than any class. And people will bring up fighter, but fighter you have access to ability score improvements, which means you have access to feats. And also every single class you get will give you some form of, except for champion, will give you some form of thing you can do in addition. Like this, except you get feats. And most of the time they're better than this one. So it is slightly ahead. I think fighter has problems. But I think that it's not as bad and obvious as with barbarian. Call the Hunt. The beast within you grows so powerful that you can spread its ferocity to others and gain resilience from them joining the hunt. When you enter your rage, you can choose a number of willing creatures you can see within 30 feet of you. You gain 5 temp hit points for each creature that accepts it until the rage is over. Chosen creatures can each use the following benefit once on each of their turns. When the creature hits a target with an attack roll and deals damage to it, the creature can roll a d6 and gain extra damage on that. Okay. I quite like this. I kind of wish this was a earlier level ability. I very much like the idea of your rage being infectious and you infecting your group with buffs. I like the idea of a buffing barbarian because I think it just gives you more stuff. You feel like you're doing more. Next is Berserker, which I think generally was considered one of the worst, if not one of the worst. It's not a coincidence that it's the first one. Third level ability is when you rage, you instead go into a frenzy. If you do so, for the duration of your rage, you can make a single weapon attack as a bonus action. It's very similar to the claws in that you get an extra attack, and this is the big one. You suffer a level of exhaustion, and the problem with this, and this could be just in my campaign, but exhaustion, you get that back on a long rest. And in my campaigns, that would be probably alright. Except for the fact that even in my campaigns, I say my campaigns, the campaigns I'm in, we are in situations where we'll deal with a big dungeon crawl, right? And a big dungeon crawl means that you will be raging multiple times because it will be in combat and out of combat stuff. And your rage lasts like only a minute or something. So you're going to be using it probably each encounter. And if I'm using this each encounter, I go from disadvantage on ability checks, which isn't incredible. Like, it's not horrendous. Like, I can still go with that. Then my speed is halved, and that's horrendous, and I'm almost useless in combat. And then I get disadvantage on attack rolls and saving throws. Bearing in mind, the longer this is going on, the closer I'm getting to the boss. So realistically, when I get to the boss, and I'd be at 3rd level exhaustion, probably, maybe worse. So I have to reckless attack every turn to get a normal roll. And I may even have half my HP, which is huge for a barbarian because the HP is the biggest thing. They have the best hit die. This is a bit with the Unearthed Arcana and how they changed it. I think this class becomes a lot more viable, and by viable, I just mean fun to play. I just mean useful to play, really. Next ability is Mindless Rage. Can't be charmed and frightened while raging. If you're charmed and frightened when you enter the rage, you're no longer charmed and frightened. It's a cool little passive ability. When you compare it to some of the stuff we've seen, you can understand why you can see that even though it's still bad, they get better and they get more stuff the later on you make your subclass. It's not great, especially when you look at, say, like the Bestial Soul, which gives you 3 different things that are helpful out of combat. Intimidating Presence. At 10th level, you can use your action to frighten someone with your menacing presence. When you do so, choose a creature you see within 30 feet. If the creature can see or hear you, it must succeed on a wisdom save or be frightened. Pardon me. It can do the save again on subsequent turns. Oh no, on this it says on subsequent turns you can use your action to extend the duration until the end of your turn, your next turn. Wait, so they don't get another roll if they... Oh! Okay. That's an interesting ability. There's some restrictions here where, like, if they're not within your line of sight, or if they're really far away, it disappears. But the fact that you can keep this on for a long period of time means that it's not as bad as I initially thought. I still don't think it's a particularly powerful ability, mainly because if you look at this, it says DC equal to 8 plus your proficiency plus your charisma modifier. Now, as a barbarian, you're already going quite heavily into strength, quite heavily into dex, and quite heavily into constitution. You do not want to also have to put stuff into charisma modifier for a single ability. One ability. That's not good. So the DC will be quite low. For example, the highest you ever get your proficiency bonus to is 5. The highest this ever really realistically gets to is maybe like 8 plus 5 plus 1, which is 14. Now, even like the least wise creature that you'll be fighting is gonna be able to roll higher than that most times. Retaliation. I do like, sorry, going back to the intimidating presence, I do like that even if you do, like the one time you do get it off, it's not like you don't have to, it's not like it's restricted by equals your proficiency bonus or something in terms of how many times you can do it. You can keep trying this, and once it's on for as long as you want to keep it going. It does use your action though, which is a problem. I don't think I particularly would like the idea that I'm going, cool, my turn. What's my turn? I move a little bit, I cast this, that's it. Like, that's it. Bit annoying. Starting at 14th level, Retaliation. When you take damage from a creature within 5 feet of you, you can reaction attack it. I think this should have been a much lower ability. I think if it was made nowadays, it would be. I think realistically, this was made nowadays. This level of exhaustion thing would either not be there, or it would just say all the things except for you suffer 1 level of exhaustion, or they would keep it assuming that it's made for the Unearthed Arcana one. I think this ability would have an extra little bit here, of a different another ability. What I'm saying is, I think they'd get 2 abilities. I think this either would be replaced with Retaliation, which I think having it at 10th level isn't that bad. Maybe lower, honestly. Maybe you'd move this to 6th level. No, that'd be too much. No, I wouldn't. You get an extra attack at that point. So yeah, maybe you move that to here. This intimidating presence thing would be changed to say all creatures that you choose within 30 feet have to do this. And they'd make it a bonus action. And this would be, as I said much earlier, and there'd be a bigger ability here. Path of the Giant. Path of the Giant is, I think, the newest one. I quite liked this when I saw it in the Unearthed Arcana, and I've read bits of the newest one. So starting off, gives you a cool little ability you can do at combat. Druidcraft, Thaumaturge. They're generally both like sort of jack of all trades cantrips that allow you to do a load of little things like brighten up stuff, make tremors, with Druidcraft, like make little sensory effects, like make flowers bloom, like little things that are quite good narratively. But this is the big thing you get while raging, because of course they can't get abilities that don't say anything while raging. Um, when you make a successful ranged attack with a thrown weapon using strength, you add your rage. So this is one of the few, like the Ancestral Guardian, that ticks that box of this changes how I can play the character. Because this one goes, you can be a ranged barbarian. Like, that's huge. Like, that's something you could definitely not do before without being severely weakened. You also get giant stature. You get a bit more reach. So you can kind of play this class sort of two different ways. I guess you could have the same character doing this. You can kind of play it as like a long range like damage dealer that's standing behind the that's not going into combat with the boss because you got your tankier person doing that. I say tankier person. There's no one tankier than you, but you're not necessarily the first line with your reach and everything. Um, crushing throw also is it makes it so you could be arranged, as I said before. So you can be like kind of like I go in there, I get them with my reach. When they get to the point where they've lowered me, I let someone take over and I start ranged attacking them. Obviously, this is magical Christmas land. This is a cool ability to get a sixth. As you can see with the levels, the almost every class after Berserker got either two abilities that are relatively small, or one large ability that gives you options. When you enter your rage, you can choose one weapon that you are holding and infuse it with the following element: acid, cold, fire, thunder, lightning. When you wield infused weapon during your rage, the weapon damage type changes to the chosen type, deals an extra d6 damage. As you'll see with a lot of 6th level abilities, as I said before, there'll be something where it's like passively you just do a little more damage. Against the thrown property, this is huge because this is where you can start playing it like you're Thor and you're throwing spears, but like they're lightning spears, so it's like you're playing as if you're Thor. Narratively, you can easily change this to being, instead of like giant, Path of the Giant, it's like Path of the deity or something, or like God blooded. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if like first like Greek Kratos when he's in the Greek world would be this. And you'd probably narratively have it where his blades are like equivalents to great swords, and the chains are what bring it back narratively when you throw it. That kind of stuff. It has normal range of 20 feet and a long range of 60 feet. You throw the weapon, it reappears in your hand, whether it hits or misses. You can use your bonus action to change the infused. That's pretty decent because you might be dealing with like a bunch of dudes and you're like, okay, I'll choose it to fire because narratively fire's cool for my character. And then they're like, oh, they just summoned a fire elemental. I need to fight that. Switch to cold or like switch to lightning. Mighty Impel. I think that's how I'm saying that. I think that's right. I've never heard that word used before. Your connection to the giant strength allows you to hurl both allies and enemies on the battlefield. as a bonus action while raging, you can choose one medium or smaller creature within your reach and move it to an unoccupied space you can see within 30 feet. Unwilling, have to make a strength save. If at the end of this movement the thrown creature isn't on a surface and liquid that can support it, if the creature falls, taking damage as normal and landing prone. I think this ability is really cool. I think it gives you a load of stuff you can do in combat. I think it's a step closer to what I'd want a barbarian to have, in the sense that this gives me more I can do in combat. I can bonus action like manipulate the battlefield, throw somebody out of maybe they're a backline, they're a sorcerer or something, and an enemy's gotten close to them. I can move close to them, pick them up, throw them out of combat, and because I'm moving them, it's forced movement in their perspective. They won't take an attack of opportunity if I'm doing right with the rules. Alternatively, I can pick somebody up, throw them in the water, throw them in like fire if I'm in an area that has, like, it's not too weird to be in like a volcanic like mountain or an obsidian like fortress that has like lava pouring, is like, because that's visually really cool. Throwing them in that, huge. When you rage, 10th level ability, Demigrig. I can't say that word. Colossus. When you rage, your reach increases by 10 feet, and your size can increase to large or huge, your choice. You can use your Mighty Impel to move creatures that are larger or smaller. In addition, the extra damage. Okay, so general buff. I like the image of this. It's really, really cool narratively. The fact you could wrestle with some huge things and it makes sense is kind of cool. Overall, it's the closest, honestly. That one and Ancestral Guardian are the closest I think you can get to making the barbarian feel different to other barbarians while also allowing you to do more than basic attack. Not by much, though. Pardon me. Path of the Juggernaut. Now, although I think Path of the Giant is the newest, this is the one I've like seen the latest, because it's a Matt Mercer book, but he's like, I think he's done the world, but maybe he's added stuff from the season 2, from what I can gather. I know it's probably sacrilegious to say about D&D, but I can't really get into Critical Role, mainly because when the kind of D&D I like to like sort of watch slash listen to is the kind of stuff that I'm trying to figure out how to say this. It's kind of like second monitor content. I want something that I can either be listening to or listening / occasionally glancing at, that I don't need to put my full attention into. And I feel like in his games, if I miss anything, or I miss like how they're acting, and like the visual part is a big element that I feel like it puts me out of it when I miss that stuff, and I keep having to rewind. It's a really cool story, and the characters, especially Sam Riegel's characters, are always great. I just can't get into it. Path of the Juggernaut. Starting when you choose this path, at 3rd level, your rage instills you with the strength to shove and smash your way through your foes, making any battlefield your dominion. When you hit a creature with a melee attack while you're raging, you can push the creature up to 5 feet from you in a direction of your choice. Which is kind of cool. Bit of crowd control. A creature that is huge or larger makes a strength save with DC. Okay. On success, he doesn't push. Okay, so on the average person, that pushes. Also at this level, 3rd level, you harness your fury to anchor your feet to the ground, becoming a bulwark of strength. While you're raging, you can't be knocked prone, or moved again along the ground against your will. It's kind of cool. It kind of sets the precedent with what they're going for, which is very heavy, like, if you get in my way, you won't be anymore. Like, you'll be moved away. Like, you are literally the Juggernaut from X-Men. Starting at 6th level, your melee attacks deal an extra 1d8. Oh, sorry. Let me go back because I realised there was more I could talk about. Thunderous Blow is a really interesting crowd control thing. I casually mentioned it, but being able to push people back is huge because it starts getting people out of allows to get um it allows to get people out of combat with the foes, because you push the foe out of, like, with away from 5 feet of you. So it allows you to do like sort of mitigation while also allowing you to do a decent amount of narrative cool stuff where you like push them into a wall, or you push them into like into lava and they fall in lava and they take a load of lava damage. That I could only think about that because of Baldur's Gate. Demolishing might. I've never heard of demolition being used as an ing thing. Demolitioning. I don't know. Starting at 6th level, your melee weapon attack deals an extra 1d8 to constructs and deals double damage to objects and structures. It's kind of like a siege attacker thing that you occasionally see on big bosses. I like that narratively they put it on this. Well, not narratively, like mechanically. I use the word narratively a lot. If you've been watching my stuff, you'd know that. And it's not... Bear in mind, I don't necessarily mean stuff... When I say narratively, 90% of the time, I don't mean narratively. You'll also find that I'll say the word hate or love really liberally, where I really just mean like general dislike or like. Now, resolute stance is interesting because I was talking to one of my friends the other day about this, and it's interesting because there's no... I'll talk about it after I've read it. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Start of your turn, no action required. You can assume a defensive stance that lasts until the start of your next turn. While in this stance, you can't be grappled, attack rolls against you with disadvantage, and your weapon attacks are made with disadvantage. What's interesting about this, and this is the conversation I was having with my friend, is we came to the conclusion that there's no reason. If you want to do a normal attack, you don't want to reckless. With this class, and if you want to do a normal attack, you reckless attack, and you go into this stance, because all it does is it means you get your normal attack. People of normal, like, they can attack you as if normal, but you're immune to grappled, which may occasionally come up. Like, it's just a bonus. Overall, I kind of like the narrative to it, because it's the exact opposite of reckless attack. And I like that you get that. Starting at 10th level, you can push a creature up to 10 feet when you hit them with a melee attack while you're raging. That's useful. So you're very much it's more crowd control than the giant is. It's all crowd control. Hurricane Strike. Starting at 10th level, your blows can hurl foes through the air and into the attacks of your allies. As a reaction, when you push a creature at least 5 feet, as you probably know, that's what the Thunderous Blow does. The creature must succeed on a strength saving throw with a DC equal to 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your strength bonus, or be knocked prone. The leap... Oh, and then sorry, I missed a bit where you leap close to them, sorry. The leap costs no movement and does not provoke attacks of opportunity. Additionally, when you push a creature into a space within 5 feet of one of your allies, the ally can use its reaction to make a melee attack against the creature. That's cool. That's a really cool ability. I very much like that ability. At 14th level, your fury in battle makes you unstoppable. While you're raging, your speed cannot be reduced and you're immune to frightened, paralyzed, prone and stunned conditions. If you're frightened, prone, paralyzed or stunned, you can still use your bonus action to enter a rage, even if you couldn't take actions otherwise. You aren't affected by any of these conditions while you rage. This is really cool. I really like... What I like about this subclass in general is, as weird as it sounds, uh, there's not too much related to raging. Like these two abilities are related to raging, and this ability is related to raging. But it also gives you this option of like going the opposite and going really into the defensive stance. So you can like push the enemy away from your allies, and then take this defensive stance, do an attack that probably isn't going to hit but might hit, and they're stuck in a situation now where they can try and leave, but they know that if they try and leave, you get an attack of opportunity on them, which sure it will be at disadvantage, but you might hit. And then as soon as you try and attack the other person, you know that the barbarians is going to come back to you and push you away again. Also, as I said before, the whole thing of like pushing the enemy into pit of spikes, lava, that kind of stuff. It's cool to like. It's one of these things I'm not very good at, which is using your environment to make cool attacks, like chopping off a chandelier to drop on a bunch of people, that kind of stuff. Overall, I like where he's going with it. Um, I'm not a huge fan of the fact it doesn't get any utility though. That's my biggest gripe with it. Path of the Storm Herald. This one's interesting. So at third level, you get while you're raging, you choose one of these effects, and I think you see this with most of the Storm Herald abilities. In addition, the aura, like there's an aura that extends from you in every direction. And when you enter the rage, you can activate the effect again on each of your on a bonus action. So I think the first one is counted in your rage, and so the effect can either be all other creatures in your aura take 2 fire damage each. Well, I'm glad I made it so that you couldn't see that. Jesus. Take two fire damage each. This increases later levels. Okay, so you just become like a don't go near this person, even allies. You can have it where when this effect is activated, you can choose one other creature you can see in your aura to make a dex save, or target takes 1d6 lightning damage on a failed save and half as much on a success. Increases. Okay, you get like a very weak core lightning. Or when this effect is activated, each creature of your choice in your aura gain 2 HP. That's temp. I think, and this is my personal opinion, this one borderline useless. This one is more bad than it is good, and this one is the one I probably always take. If I'm being completely honest, I think this is cool narratively. I just think these are better. Can I? If I move this a decent amount, can I allow it so that you guys can... I can't make it any bigger. That's a shame. I wish I could make it bigger for you, and there might be a little like statistic thing here, but well. I hope you can actually see it on the bigger screens, and it's not too bright. I think there's a possibility it might be. Storm Soul. At 6th level, the benefits are based on your environment you chose for your Storm Aura. Yep. Resistance to fire damage. You don't suffer effects of extreme heat. Moreover, as an action, you can turn flammable stuff on fire. There's been one uncarried. I need to double check something. Can I switch my aura? Yeah, every level, but not every time. So you can't really specialize it to wherever you're going. So the resistance to fire is okay, but generally these abilities, how often are they going to come up? Very rarely, unless you're doing a very heavy desert campaign, I guess. I also don't really understand why desert's one of the options for a storm. You would have thought it'd be like wind, rain, lightning. So that's what I think of when I think of a storm. You gain resistance to lightning damage and you can breathe underwater. You gain movement speed. Again, very situational and you can't change it on the fly, so it's not going to be that good. And then effectively the opposite of desert, where you gain cold resistance, don't suffer extreme cold, and when you touch something it freezes. As long as touch an object, it freezes. Shielding Storm. At 10th level, you learn to use your mastery of the storm to protect others. Each creature of your choice has the damage resistance that you gained. Again, decently situational. It's nothing compared to any of the auras the Paladin gets, in my opinion. Raging Storm. At 14th level, the power of the storm you choose grows mightier. You get an additional effect. Immediately after a creature in your aura hits you with an attack, you can use your reaction to force them to make a dex save. On a failed, the creature takes fire damage equal to half your barbarian level. It's okay. When you hit a creature in your aura with an attack, you can use your reaction to force the creature to make a strength save. On a failed, if not prone. That's decent. Whenever the effect of your storm aura is activated, you can choose one creature you can see within your aura. The creature must succeed on the strength save or its speed is reduced to 0 until the start of your next turn. I think my biggest problem with this is initially it looks like it has a load of options, but the restriction of having it where you can only change them when you level is hugely bad. I think you should have had it be a long rest, in my opinion. I think the abilities you get, although cool and give you a load to choose from, at the end of the day, most of them are either situational or kind of just bad, and none of them give you extra things a barbarian can do. And because of that, it's not great. Next is Totem Barbarian, or in the people I talk to, it's called the metagaming choice. Well, it is the metagaming choice. I think I'd call it that. You'll see when we get to the 3rd level ability. But let's start at the very top. Spirit Seeker. Yours is a path of seeking attunement with natural worlds, giving you kinship with beasts. You get beast sense and speak with animals. That's good. I like that ability. It gives you a bit of utility. It means if you don't have a druid or ranger in your group, you have somebody that can communicate with animals and has this sort of a kinship with nature that makes sense. Gives you a couple of spells you can use out of combat. I don't rate beast sense particularly highly. But I do rate speak with animals decently. Totem Spirit. At 3rd level, when you adopt this path, you choose a Totem Spirit and gain its features. Then there's a lot of stuff about you have to make your totem. You can have it where you get minor physical attributes that are reminiscent of your totem. Like you become hairier if you have a bear totem. They don't give you anything. But they can be narrative. I like having narrative stuff there. It mentions stuff about how, although it says bear, you could choose something that's a bit bear-like that would have abilities like a bear. If you chose eagle, you could just choose any creature really that had wings. It doesn't have to be what they say here, which I also again like, because it just means that you're not restricted, and I like having these little helpful hints there to just be like, hey, it's a narrative thing at the end of the day. If you don't want your person to have a bear, you want them to instead have a koala, which I guess is a kind of bear, but not the bear you'd think of. You can use this, it just narratively won't be the same. Now, speaking of bear, this is why I consider it the metagaming choice, because while raging, you have resistance to all damage except psychic. That's huge. You've gone effectively from having resistance to effectively all melee damage to resistance to every damage except psychic, which very rarely comes up. And there are ways to get resistance to psychic as well. So effectively what you've done is gone, hey, remember my health bar? It's effectively doubled while I'm raging. And I'm always raging because I'm a barbarian, it's the only thing I have. Then you have Eagle. While you're raging and aren't wearing heavy armor, other creatures have disadvantage on opportunity attack rolls against you. And you can use the dash action as a bonus action. Having the ability to dash around is pretty decent. The fact you don't get disengage means they've still got a chance of hitting you. It's not that great. And frankly, a lot of people don't even look at the other abilities because of what Bear does, really. Next, you've got Elk. While you're raging and aren't wearing heavy armor, which realistically you'll never be wearing heavy armor, your speed increases by 15 feet. I quite like that. Again, it gives you more maneuverability, but the difference here is you're not using a bonus action. You're not getting as much, and you're not getting this opportunity attack thing, but the extra just passive speed is decent. Tiger, it's not great. I'll be honest, it increases your jump speed, like jump distance and jump height, but I think it should have given you some sort of pounce ability, because this, or like having it where it's like if you've jumped on your turn, get a bonus to your attack, or in addition to your attack, they have to make a strength save or they get knocked prone, or are grappled by you, something like that. And then there's Wolf, where it's like your friends have advantage on melee attack rolls against any creature within 5 feet of you. So they get a weird version of pack tactics, which doesn't affect you but affects everyone else. 6th level. Oh, by the way, opinions on that 3rd level ability is I feel like either all the other abilities have to be buffed or they have to nerf Bear. Overall, they have decent abilities that change how you play your character a bit. But nobody will know because everyone takes Bear. And all the others aren't great. And I don't mind one ability being more powerful than the rest. I dislike it when I feel like there's such a gulf that you feel like you are shooting yourself in the foot instead of just taking a narrative change when you pick the other ones. Aspect of the beast. At 6th level, you effectively get an additional thing that you can pick, but notably because it's supposed to be like a totem, and there's many different animals on the totem, you can choose a different one than the one you previously chose. You gain the might of a bear. Carrying capacity is doubled. Your advantage on making pushes. You're pushing stuff, lifting stuff, pulling stuff, and breaking stuff. Pretty decent. Obviously, it's nothing compared to the before bear one, but it sets the scene for what aspect of the beast does, which is it's more passive effects or out of combat effects. Eagle. You can see up to a mile away with no difficulty, able to discern even fine details as though looking at something no more than 100 feet away. Additionally, dim light doesn't impose disadvantage on your wisdom perception checks. That's pretty cool, because it's a little known thing that just isn't really brought up, is that is just a thing that happens, and like you get disadvantage on perception checks when you're in dim light. Elk. Whenever mounted or on foot, your travel pace is doubled. As is the travel pace of up to 10 companions while they're within 60 feet of you. If you're doing a heavy exploratory thing, just like I said with the ranger, you're probably taking this, because it's huge to double your time when you're going a far distance. If something's going to take like 10 months, so you're going to literally the other side of the world, it taking 5 months is huge. Tiger, you just get 2 proficiencies. That's not bad. Having stealth might come up. Being stealthy as a barbarian is kind of an insane prospect. Wolf, you gain hunting sensibilities of a wolf. You can track other creatures while traveling at a fast pace. You can move stealthily while traveling at a normal pace. Could come up occasionally. It's very similar to what you've seen on the ranger. If you need something like this, that wolf ability is pretty decent. Overall, 6th level ability, it's pretty cool. It's not bad. I like a lot of the abilities you get there. I can see uses for them. Stuff like the eagle one and the elk stand out to me as being stuff that fundamentally changes how the game works. Being able to see up to a mile away is kind of insane. Spirit Walker, the 10th level ability. You can cast Commune with Nature. You instantly gain knowledge on... Okay, you can instantly gain knowledge on terrain, bodies of water, plants, minerals, animals, people, celestials, fae, fiend, or undead, influence from other planes or buildings. Interesting. So it's an information thing. I quite like that, actually. You can cast it as a ritual. When you do so, a version of your animal appears and conveys information. Right, I like that. Bit of an out of combat ability. It gives you some narrative sort of like contribution to sort of role plays and stuff. It can be like, oh, we don't know what to do. Don't worry. I have access to commune with nature. I'll commune with my bear companion, my bear spirit, and I'll ask them if they know anything about Alcazar, the genie of the East or something. You know, some random, genie. Or, anyone. I'm just using that as an example. Totem attunement. Let's just move this a bit here so that we can see the lower level abilities. Okay. At 14th level, you gain a magical benefit based on the totem animal of your choice. Again, you can choose a different one. While you're raging, any creature within 5 feet of you that's hostile to you has disadvantage on attack rolls against targets other than you. Or another character with this feature. Okay. An enemy is immune to this effect if it can't see or hear you, or it can't be frightened. Interesting. Problem is, late level, lots of things can't be frightened. It's a cool ability, but we've seen better abilities even with the subclasses we've looked at the moment, and we haven't looked at all of the tanky subclasses yet for other classes. Eagle. While raging, you have a flying speed equal to your current walking speed. The benefit only works in short bursts, so you fail if you end your turn in the area. Okay, so you get this limited flying ability. I think at this level, you could easily have given us a flying ability. I think there's a couple of subclasses that would give you that. I don't mind it. It's cool. It looks cool. Bit weak maybe for a 14th level ability though. Elk. While raging, you can use a bonus action during your move to pass through the space of a larger, smaller creature. And if you do, you're effectively like ramming. You're like charging over them. So you can knock them prone, and they take damage equal to 1d12 plus your strength modifier. I kind of like that as a thing. I think again, as I said with the eagle one, I think it may be a bit, and I believe this for the bear one as well, it's a bit early. So a bit late for this kind of ability, which is kind of annoying. While you're raging, if you move at least 20 feet in a straight line towards a larger, smaller creature right before you making a melee attack, you can use your bonus action to make an additional melee attack. I don't think this is particularly good. This is the kind of ability you'd get without that restriction on like the Beast Barbarian's Claws, or in many different classes. In fact, if you're using 2 weapons, I think you just get this passively at the very start. Sure, you don't get your proficiency bonus on the second attack, but you only need to take 1 feat and you've effectively got this. These all feel like earlier level abilities, maybe like 10th level abilities. While raging, you can use your bonus... Sorry, this is the wolf one. While raging, you can use a bonus action on your turn to knock a large or smaller creature prone when you hit it with a melee attack. That's not bad, because that's not knocking somebody prone just guarantee if they're large or smaller. Which most stuff is going to be large or smaller, except for the big boss, in my opinion. Okay, that's not too bad, honestly. We have 2 left. We have the Path of the Wild Magic, which you can't even see the name of at the moment. Let me just move that. Tell you what, let me just shrink this a bit so that you can properly see what I'm seeing. You know what? No, that doesn't make any sense. Because we need to be able to see everything. There. That's better. I feel like you can see it a bit better there. Sorry, I mean, I'm still early on, so in my streaming stuff, I know the mic's not particularly good. No idea why. Bought a decent mic. Probably some setting I'm completely missing. And I know that my upload means that I can only... like the quality isn't the best. I have no idea what's going to happen when I actually start playing games, but I'll get to that when I figure out what game I'm going to play, really. Path of the Wild Magic. Of Wild Magic. Now, if you've played Baldur's Gate, I think that they changed this to make it a bit better, but I'll have to double check because I haven't actually looked at it. As an action, you can open your awareness to a presence of concentrated magic. Until the end of your next turn, you know the location of any spell or magical item within 60 feet of you that isn't behind total cover. When you sense a spell, you learn which school of magic it belongs to. I like this ability. It's a very cool ability that I've seen done similar in other classes, but this one's probably the best version of it because in this one, you know, the school is it's a decent AoE in terms of like it's 60 feet or it is within 60 feet of you, and you get it equal to your proficiency bonus. I think this is really cool, and it narratively makes a load of sense. But this is the big ability that people will talk about. So the Wild Magic Surge. Now, this one, what the thing with this is, your magical energy rolling around you. It's not stable. So when you enter a rage, you roll on this table. You roll a d8, and you get one of these abilities. You either get shadowy tendrils lash around you. Each creature of your choice can within 30 feet must succeed on a con save or take 1d6 necrotic. You also gain 1d12 necrotic, and you gain 1d12 temp hit points. That's pretty decent as an AoE. Even later on, that's not horrendous. You teleport up to 30 feet to an unoccupied space, you can see. You can use this effect again on each of your turns. That's pretty decent getting a teleport. It's probably better than the first one. Intangible Spirit, which looks like a flump of a pixie, appears within 5 feet of one creature of your choice that you can see within 30 feet. At the end of your current turn, it explodes. Each creature within 5 feet must succeed on a dex save or take 1d6 force damage. You can summon this again as a bonus action. Now that's just fun. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but it's force damage, so it's probably not going to be resisted. But it's just fun, really. Just summoning flumps and making them explode. Magically infuse weapon of your choice. Until your rage ends, the weapon damage changes to force. That's huge. It gains light and thrown property. Less huge. With the same bonifiers as the giant one. Except the problem with this ability is it doesn't add your rage damage onto it, so it's less viable. Whenever a creature hits you with an attack roll before your rage ends, the creature takes 1d6 force damage as magic lashes out. That's pretty decent. And Until your rage ends, you are surrounded by multicolored protective lights. You gain +1 AC, and while within 10 feet of you, your allies get the same. That's pretty decent, especially if you're on the front line with other front lines. Flowers and vines temporarily grow around you. Until your rage ends, the ground within 15 feet of you is difficult terrain. I guess that keeps enemies within, like close to you, because they'd have to use the whole turn to get away from your difficult terrain, and then you can just move it again on your turn. Bolt of light shoots from your chest. Another creature of your choice that you can see within 30 feet must succeed on a con save, or take 1d6 and be blinded. So as you can see, all of them are decent effects, like decently powerful effects. I think honestly, looking at it, the one that you roll a 1 on, which makes sense because that's the lowest roll, is probably the worst. And the one you roll an 8 on is arguably the best. Yeah, I love this ability. I thought for some reason that they had changed it in Baldur's Gate so that it got rid of all the ones that hurt your friends. But looking at this, no, none of them hurt your friends. They're all pretty decent. So I give this honestly top marks for its ability. Bolstering magic. You can harness your wild magic to bolster yourself or a companion. As an action, you can touch one creature which can be yourself and confer one of the following benefits. For 10 minutes, the creature can roll a d3 whenever you make an attack or an ability check and add the number to the d20 roll. So you get a slightly weakened bless. Or roll a d3. The creature regains one expended spell slot, the level of which equals the number rolled or lower. They can't receive it again until after a long rest. So in action, you can touch somebody and give them a weakened bless forever for 10 minutes, or you can regain like a first, second, or third level spell slot, which is decent at that level. I don't mind that ability. It's better than some. I think it's actually, yeah, it's pretty decent. I don't have much to say about it. It's a decent ability though. Giving you stuff you can do with your action, even when not raging, is a bonus to me. Unstable backlash. When you're imperiled during the rage, the magic within you can lash out. Immediately after you take damage or fail a saving throw while raging, you can use your reaction to roll on the wild magic table and immediately produce the effect. That's decent. I mean, I feel like I'd be using that either whenever my wild magic I have on now is just being useless, or when I've done when I rolled a 1 in the previous one. Or if I'm high rolling to get the 1, I guess it's low rolling to get the 1 to have the big AoE. That'd be cool. I don't mind that effect. I guess it just keeps using this wild magic table, which I feel like the later you get on, the more its effects don't really matter. And so having it where you can do more effects is a bonus for me. Whenever you roll on a wild magic table, you can roll the die twice and choose which of the two effects to unleash. Pardon me. If you roll the same number on both die, you can ignore the number and choose any effect. That's cool. I like that you can. The weaker this gets in comparison to other abilities, the more you get to either do it more or choose what you do, which I quite like. Path of the Zealot. Now, all I've ever heard about the Path of the Zealot is you can become effectively invincible using it, unless you get hit by the sleep spell. Or, anything that if you hit 0, it just kills you. So, starting when you choose this path, at 3rd level, you can channel Divine Fury into your weapon strikes. While you're raging, the first creature you hit on each of your turns gets an extra d6 plus half your barbarian level. The extra damage is necrotic or radiant, you choose. At 3rd level, your soul is marked for endless war. If a spell such as Raise Dead has the sole effect of restoring you to life, the caster doesn't need material components. So, I'm guessing that means that you can be revivified for free, which is pretty decent. Bearing in mind that takes like a diamond, and some of the later stuff takes huge amounts. Starting at 6th level, the divine power that fuels your rage can protect you. If you fail a saving throw while you're raging, you can re-roll it, and you must use the new one. You can only use this once per rage. Now, going back onto this thing, I quite like this ability. It's quite it seems at the face of it quite like a generic ability that like every subclass gets, where it's just like a little bit of extra damage. But instead, what it is that ability accepts scaling, which is pretty decent. And this ability, what I really like about this ability, is this gets increasingly useful the later on, because they start using like true resurrection on you. That still applies, and this ability, as we just read, pretty decent. It gives you kind of the warrior, the fighter's indomitable, except better, because you can technically be raging more than once per short rest. At 10th level, you learn to channel divine power to inspire zealotry in others. As a bonus action, you can release a battle cry infused with divine energy. Up to 10 other creatures of your choice within 60 feet of you that can hear you gain advantage on attack rolls and saving throws until the start of your next turn. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. So that's pretty cool for an ability to just do like a... There's a load of narrative to this where you can like... It can be like this final turn, everybody's there, and it's like, I released this inspiring war cry to give everybody hope to finish off this fiend finally. And it's like, cool, everyone gets advantage. That is a cool narrative tool. I can't help but notice it hasn't gotten a single utility thing though, and I think we've just gotten to the thing that they talk about, which is they're effectively invincible. Beginning at 14th, while you're raging, having 0 hit points doesn't knock you unconscious. You still make saving throws, death saving throws, and you suffer the normal effects of taking damage while at 0 hit points. However, if you would die due to failing saving throws, you don't die until your rage ends. And you die then only if you still have 0 hit points. So the logic here is... So I only die if I stop raging. But later on you get an ability that says you have infinite rage. Like the rage lasts forever. So you just don't die. So you become effectively invincible unless they sleep you or like hit you with a disintegration or other spell that says if you hit 0 you disappear. Something fancy happens. So overall, Path to Zealot is a very good battle-based subclass, as in it doesn't have any utility, and that's a huge problem with the Barbarian that wouldn't be as much of a problem with any other class. But I don't mind it. Overall, let's do that again. With Barbarian subclasses, I think that generally the later ones, Beast, Giant, they're trying to solve the problem, right? It's not perfect, but they're trying to solve it. They're getting close, but nowhere near what they need to be. Whereas Ancestral Guardian is kind of the exception to this rule, and I think the problem almost all of them have is their class inherently not having the utility that you'd expect. I think if you're basing them just on a subclass, which I guess I should be, Ancestral Guardian, Zealot, and Ancestral Guardian, Beast, Giant, and Wild Magic are decent. Ancestral Guardian is very good. Right. I think I'll end it here because I've just gone past 2 hours. I understand this video isn't the best. There's not really much I can do. I might fiddle around with the settings to see if maybe I can make it a bit darker, because looking at this window, it's decently light to the point where I can see the words, but the words are a bit iffy. I might see if I can maybe start streaming with a smaller window to maybe make it a bit more like easier to see stuff. But there's nothing I can do about like the quality and keeping the same size, because it's something related to upload, and I'm stuck in a contract for at least a year. I mean, I could try and get like upload just for my computer, but I think I'm going to try this streaming thing a bit longer to see if I like it before doing that, which might be a bit of a mistake, because I might put people off by how bad it looks, and so then I will get a worse experience, and it might lessen the impact of, say, the 2-3 months, maybe half a year that I do this before considering it. But it's a decision I've made. I never expected any. Realistically, I don't expect anyone other than my friends to watch this. But if they do, if other people do watch it, then great. I'm doing this as a hobby at this point, and I'm not even doing as much work as my other friend who started it. Like, I'm not really doing many things when it comes to like making sure that I have like a YouTube channel and like do stuff for it, and to post on Twitter and stuff, even though even putting my Twitter information in there. I might do that after a month of doing this, but maybe we'll have to see. Anyway, I'm rambling again. But I guess that's the name of the streams I'm making. But yeah, I'll see you next stream. Bye.